before we start, I'm gonna ask for the honorifics of the witnesses.
Oh.
So,
Have the sheet on you for that.
yeah, I'm just
Okay.
looking for the titles. So for, Suzanne, honorific,
What is it?
Mr. Mc-
Oh, missed is perfect, thank you.
for Knackle, Miss,
Knack, recently Mrs.
Miss, thank you. For Thorne,
Mrs.
Mrs., thank you.
Thank you.
And for Lampert, Miss, thank you. All right, counsel, once again.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon. Yes, go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Aaron Matthew. I'm joined with Ms. Claire Humphrey.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
We represent the plaintiff in this case. We have investigator Tab Thorne at counsel table with us.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
Would you like to hear from the defense before we continue?
Yes, thank you. Defense?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Nasir Muldrow. Today at council table, I'm joined with Sam Barnsworth.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, sir.
Together, we represent the defendant in this case, Lampert Family Carnival, which is being represented by Miss Legacy Lampert.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Plaintiff, housekeeping matters.
Yes, Your Honor. Do you have the case materials in front of you?
I do, thank you.
Turn your attention to stipulation 14. It's just that all objections have been waived to 4, 5, and 7. Those are 3 exhibits. They can be entered after opening statements. No more foundation.
Any objections, counsel?
Not all.
Thank you.
And if you turn to the pretrial orders, the first pretrial order, it's vicarious liability. All of the actions of the defendant's employees before the night in question are being imputed to the defendant. They're being held vicariously liable.
Any objection?
Not at all. That's our understanding.
Thank you.
With that, we're good to go.
Defense, housekeeping?
Not at all, Your Honor. In fact, we're going to get the show on the road.
Okay, before we get started, I'm going to constructively swear in all of the witnesses, sequester them as need be. Counsel, if there is any need, and witnesses, if there's any need to move about the well, you may do so freely.
Yes, Your Honor.
Plaintiff, your first witness, please. I'm sorry, your opening statement. please.
All good, Your Honor. They cut corners, and he paid the price. It's July 14th, 2023, and a performer reaches in to a locked safe. Hundreds of people are watching, waiting for the trick they wanted to see for months. But what that crowd doesn't know, what that performer can't know, is that the gun they're about to pull out of that box isn't new. It hasn't been cleaned. Just hours before, it was loaded with live ammunition. So when that performer pulls the trigger, that bang goes off. On the other side of the stage, Max the Magnificent collapses to the ground. Members of the jury, we're here because the carnival that put on that trick failed to take the steps to make it safe. That's why we've brought an action of recklessness against the defendant, Lampert Family Carnivals. Now, normally that would mean we'd have to prove 4 things to you, but the defense has made our job a little easier. We all agree it was their job to provide a safe environment for that trip. All we need to prove is that it was more likely than not that they acted unreasonably and that their actions threatened the life of the performer. Members of the jury, you won't see a video of that gun going off today. You don't need to. You'll hear from the people who saw it happen. You'll hear from the people who will tell you that gun was trouble from the store to the safe to the stage. We'll call Mr. Utah Udine. Mr. Udine was an employee at LFC back in 2023. He'll tell you he saw that gun being loaded with live bullets the day before the trip. Instead of keeping that gun in the safe, you'll learn the armorer was shooting it off in the air before giving the gun back to Max. Mr. Udine will tell you that the carnival cut corners when it came to keeping Max safe. And then we'll call an investigator, Tab Thorne, to the stand, and she'll tell you that wasn't a fluke. You'll learn that she's been investigating LFC for years. While she was undercover, she saw that gun just lying around on the floor. Later, that same gun was used in that trip and took Max's life. Members of the jury, you'll learn that Max paid the price for what the carnival did. Today, you'll hear that step after step, the carnival failed to do the reasonable things they could to keep Max safe. They cut corners, and he paid the price. That's why we'll ask you to hold this carnival responsible for recklessness. Thank you very much.
Thank you, counsel. Defense, you're opening statement.
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Okay.
The carnival was clean, but the cops were dirty. It's July 14th, 2020. Legacy Lampert is sitting in a tent. She's crying but relieved. Law enforcement has just cleared her of any criminal misconduct in this case, and she feels a weight has been lifted off her shoulders. But then a cop bursts into her tent. You're going to pay for this, the cop says. Whether you like it or not, you're going down. So here's the question. Why would a cop say that? And why is that cop sitting in court in a civil lawsuit representing the plaintiff while wearing a police badge? The answer might surprise you. To know why, you have to think about something that you might not want to think about. High school. You see, to understand where this case begins, you gotta know that cop has had a vendetta against my client since they were in 10th grade together. And you're going to learn she carried that vendetta with her when she became a police officer. So much so, you're going to learn she was fired because she refused to stop investigating my client. So you're going to learn that when law enforcement, legitimate law enforcement said, Lampert Family Carnival, they didn't do anything wrong in this case. That cop wasn't satisfied. So she volunteers, says, I will represent the plaintiff in a lawsuit. But I want to introduce you to the person she's suing. This is Lacey Lampert. She owns Lampert Family Carnival, and she cares about the safety of her performers. You're going to hear she would never cut corners to save costs. That she actually hired an armorer to make sure her performers were safe. And that's a problem for the plaintiff because they have what's called the burden of proof. They have to prove by a preponderance of the evidence or show you it's more likely than not that Lampert Family Carnival's recklessness was the direct and proximate cause of Maximilian's death. They're not going to be able to do that for two reasons. The carnival was clean, but the cops were. Let's talk about what we mean when we say that. Let's start with the fact the carnival was clean. We're going to call a witness named Nick Knack to the stand. She's going to tell you about the steps Lampert Family Carnival took to ensure their performers were safe. You're going to hear they hired somebody to check the firearms before they were used, and that they invested money into making sure the entire show was safe. The evidence will show they would never risk the lives of one of their performers to turn a quick buck. That brings us to fact 2. The cops were dirty. Because that's why we're here. We're going to call Lacey Lampert to the witness stand, and she's going to tell you about Officer Thorne. She's going to tell you that she has had a vendetta against my client going back to high school years. And you're going to learn that she was fired because she wouldn't stop going after my client. Throughout this case, I want you to focus on the risks that Lampert Family Carnival protected their performers from. And the fact that Officer Thorne refused to see. That's why at the end of this trial, we're going to ask you to find my client not liable. Because the carnival was clean, but the cops were dirty. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Plaintiff, you may call your first witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Utah Udine to stand.
Mr. Udine, please come and take the witness stand. You are under oath.
Okay. Okay,
Good afternoon, sir.
good afternoon.
Could you introduce yourself to the members of our jury?
Sure. Hello there. My name is Utah Udine.
Are you still working, Mr. Udine?
Oh, yes, ma'am, I am. But until recently, I was actually retired, believe it or not.
Why did you leave retirement?
Well, I tried all of the things you're supposed to do during retirement. You know, reading, volunteering, posting rants on the Facebook, but no matter what I did, I was bored. So I decided to go back to work with the most exciting job I could think of. A professional daredevil.
Why did you choose to be a daredevil, sir?
Family. My mother's actually a daredevil to this day. The woman's 102 years old. Well, she may not have a license to drive a car. You don't need a license to get in a cannon. I figured if she was still doing it, well, I have no reason not to follow my heart too.
Where have you been performing, sir?
Well, right now I'm in between carnivals, but for the past couple of years, I've been working at the Lampert Family Carnival.
While you were with that carnival, did you ever know someone named Maximilian?
Yes, ma'am. I knew Max. Well, she was a magician at the carnival.
Did you two ever talk?
Yes, ma'am, we did. We used to take our breaks together. See, the two of us would hustle down to the vending machine and treat each other to peanut M&Ms. We call it peanut time. I love peanut time.
So did you ever hear about any of Miss Maximilian's tricks?
Yes, ma'am. You know, we talked about her tricks a lot. I even saw many.
Did you ever see her perform the bullet catch trick?
No. I didn't see that specific trick, no.
So why are you here testifying today?
Well, I didn't see that trick. I saw some of the preparations for it. So, you know, a couple months back, a police officer asked if I would come in and talk to you all as part of a plea deal.
So why do you have a plea deal?
Well, last year, my mother challenged me to a street race. That's how she lost her license. See, we were driving and then the cops caught up with us, and then it was all bad from there.
So what are the terms of this plea deal you have?
Well, I have to come here and speak to all of you for the plaintiff, and I had to give useful testimony. But they were very clear to say that all of my testimony, well, it has to be the truth, you know? So if they sniff any exaggeration, right out the window. But, you know, Scout Son, go on.
So I do want to talk about what you remember from the preparation process. Do you remember seeing a firearm anywhere at the carnival during the lead up?
Yes, ma'am. 2 times.
Let's start with that first time. When was that?
Well, it was on July 13th of last year, which was the night before Max's trick.
Where were you?
We were at the carnival after hours at a little shindig. We were by the campfire, we had a plastic table, and everyone was playing poker. But the way I grew up, I don't gamble, so I was just using my M&Ms.
What happened next?
Well, while we were playing, a young man named Mr. Ashmore walked up. He was the armorer for the carnival, and in his hands, he had a big purple box with a lock on it.
Did you see what was inside that purple box?
I did, yeah. Well, at first I thought that was just where he was keeping his M&Ms for safekeeping, but you know, after a little while and a couple of drinks, he opened the box and pulled out a handgun.
Would you recognize a picture of that handgun and of that lockbox if I got them?
Yes, ma'am, I certainly would.
I'm retrieving copies of exhibits 4 and 5 from the bench, approaching opposing counsel of exhibits, approaching the witness with the same.
Oh, thank you.
Of course, sir. Sir, what did I just hand you there?
Well, this is that purple box with the lock on it. And this looks like a photograph of the weapon that was pulled out.
Do they look changed anyway since that poker night?
No, ma'am, they look right as right.
The plaintiff moves to enter exhibits 4 and 5 into evidence, noting for the record that all objections have been made.
No objections then. No argument.
Yes, Your Honor. So, sir, after Mr. Ashmore pulled out that gun, what happened next?
He told us that he wanted to use it, you know, set up a shooting range. So he started setting up a bunch of beer cans and knocking them down.
And you said that you saw that gun for a second time. When was that?
It was the very next day, right before Max's performance, while they were preparing.
Objection, Your Honor, as to lack of foundation.
Expand on that, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor, as to whether or not this was the same gun that was used in the trick.
Response?
Yes, Your Honor, this is a matter of weight and non-admissibility. Mr. Udine has already testified that he saw this gun and then saw it again the next time. He can connect the dots as if the gun he saw before looked the same as the one he saw this time.
I'm going to sustain the objection, counsel, and you'd like ask a further clarifying question on why he believes it was the same gun.
Yes, Your Honor. So why did you think that was the same gun from that poker?
Right, so during the preparation, I saw the same armorer walk up with this exact same box. He gives it to Max's assistant, and she pulled out this gun. It was the same box, it looked like the same model, I thought it was the same.
And so looking at that gun now, can you describe it for the members of the jury?
Sure, you know, the first night I saw it, it was dark outside, so I didn't notice all of the details, but as I'm looking at it now, it looks, you know, kind of old. I mean, not like my mother old, but still old. I mean, you can see it's got scratches on it and the paint is chipped. You know, it even looks a little rusted, don't you think?
Sir, after you saw that old looking gun, did you ever see Ms. Maximilian again?
No. You know, I didn't really get a chance to say goodbye or anything like that. You know, I still do peanut time all by myself now, but you know, it's a little bit more like I remember you thing.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Udine. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Udine.
Good afternoon. Before we start, are you hungry?
No, I'm not. Sir, You talked a little bit earlier about why you're here. I really want to draw this out for our jury. Sir, it's true you're not here voluntarily, right?
Well, technically, yes, they weren't gonna put me in handcuffs and nothing for not showing up here. But yeah, I'm on a plea deal.
Right, sir. You're here because of a plea deal that you signed with the police department in Marada, correct?
Bingo.
And it wasn't just because you were street racing, right? There was a second charge you got.
Evading. I took a left turn.
Not just a left turn, you tried to flee from the police, right?
That's what they called it.
And when it came to solving these legal problems, you signed a plea deal. Yes.
Right. They said if I come here and talk to you all, I might get probation.
Let's talk a little bit more about that deal. Because it's true, you actually know an officer by the name of Tab Thorne, don't you?
That was the officer who talked to me. Yes, sir.
You know that Tab Thorne, they've been trying with evidence on Legacy Lambert, haven't they?
Well, yes. Originally, they asked me about a financial investigation.
That's right, into Miss Lambert, correct?
Yes.
And see, your job in all of this is to actually testify in any trial that Miss Lambert's a part of, right?
Right. That's what I said. I had to be here.
So let's get this straight. Your testimony has to be helpful for the prosecution, doesn't it?
And they say useful and truthful. Those are the two things.
Let's make it clear about that truthful one. I don't determine how truthful your testimony is, do
I don't think so, but you can have an opinion if you want.
Well, sir, pursuant to that deal, the judge doesn't determine how truthful that testimony is.
No, but hello.
Sir, pursuant to that deal, it's these attorneys that determine how truthful your testimony is, right?
Right. If they find out that I'm a lion, I'm in big trouble.
Let's talk about what you get out of it. Sir, it's true. Originally, you were looking at 10 years behind bars with those charges, right?
Potentially, things went wrong.
Sir, if that deal stays intact, that 10 years turns into probation.
That's right. It's a potential maximum of 10 years. But if I do this, it's just certainly probation.
Not just probation, sir. That 10 turns to a 0, right?
I'm pretty sure that's how probation works. Yeah.
All right, sir, let's move on now to talk about another reason you're here, because we can agree. A part of you actually wanted to testify against Ms. Lambert, correct?
Wanted is maybe a stretch, but I'm happy to be here.
Let's talk about it. Sir, because isn't it true? After everything went down with Legacy Carnival, they blamed you for what happened, right?
Well, they fired me.
Not just fired you, they told you they blamed you, right?
Right, because I wasn't the one performing that night. If I was, they said, well, this whole thing wouldn't have happened.
That's right. They told you if it hadn't been for your leg, this whole thing wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I like my leg just fine. They don't.
Sir, after they told you these things, after they blamed you, it felt like you'd been kicked to the curb, right?
Yeah, right in the gut, right here.
So with that feeling of being kicked to the curb in one hand, and that plea deal you got in the other, it's true, you feel that testifying against Miss Lambert is a win-win for you.
Sure. I mean, I'd rather be here than not be here, that's for sure.
That's right.
Any redirect? No redirect, Your Honor. May Ms. Beatty please step down?
Thank you, sir, for your testimony. You are excused.
Thank you very much.
With that, you may call your first witness.
We call Ms. Nick Knack to the stand.
Thank you. Mrs. Knack, you may come down. Thank you. You can also whenever you're ready.
All right. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you too.
Could you please introduce yourself to our jury?
Of course, my name is Nick Snack.
Where are you from?
Originally, I'm from Alabaster, Alabama, but I moved up here after I got married.
And what do you do for a living?
Well, as many of you probably know, I'm the all-knowing Nick's Southern sidekick. Of course, I don't really know everything. No, only God is all-knowing.
Now, I gotta ask, what's the difference between a Southern psychic and a regular psychic?
The outfit. Yeah, I don't like all those scarves and sequins, feels a little bit tacky. I prefer to be more subtle.
And those abilities you speak of, I mean, how long have you had those abilities?
Well, Mama said I was born special, but I really discovered my talent when the good Lord sent me a vision of our pastor stepping out on his wife with the redhead next door. Next thing I knew, all the women in town were dragging their husbands to me to look into.
And where do you work?
Well, I work at LFC, Lampert Family Carnival.
And do you know who runs that family carnival?
Oh, yes, sir. It's Miss Legacy Lampert. It's a family business. She's our boss.
And how long have you been working for them?
About 11 years, ever since I started putting my talents to use.
And were you working for that carnival back July 14th, 2023?
Yes, sir, I was.
Let's talk about how that carnival had been organized. Do you know anything about that?
Well, back when I first started in 2013, about safe as a sinner in church.
What do you mean?
Well, the conditions, they didn't really seem the best. You know, I didn't even have a tent. It was just an old shower curtain I hung up around a table. We didn't have a whole lot of staff either.
Now, from that point in 2013, did the conditions ever improve?
Oh, Lord, yes. Yes, it became a whole different show. Everything got safer and improved. The tents, the seating, the hair and makeup budget, everything changed.
And throughout those 10 years, did that safety that they upheld, did it remain the same?
Yes, sir. Yes, I wouldn't have stayed there if it had.
Do you know someone by the name of Maximilian?
Yes, sir, I do. He's a magician, worked for LFC.
How do you know?
Well, he's a real big name in the magic world. He actually came in to replace our previous act, Mr. Utah Udine. Sweet old man. Yeah, he always wears those sweaters, even in July, and gives you half melted M&Ms out of his pocket. But, you know, he got himself into a fender bender. You know, takes after his mother.
Do you know if Mr. Maximilian was supposed to perform a trick on July 14th of 2023?
Yes, sir. Yes, he was.
And what was that trick?
It was the bullet catch trick.
Could you explain what that trick was to our jury?
Well, I've never seen it myself, but given my premonition abilities, I figured it was a trick in which someone would catch a bullet.
Did you ever speak to the person who was supposed to maintain the props for that trick?
Yes, that was Angel Ashmore.
When did you speak with Angel Ashmore?
Was July 13th, the night before the big show.
And what were you doing that night, Mr. Ashmore?
Well, myself and the rest of the carnival crew, we went out for a poker night. But given my abilities, I'm no longer allowed in casinos. So we went to a bar.
And did Mr. Ashmore tell you anything about that bullet catch trick?
Yes, he said that he wanted to get a gun and blanks for the trick.
And how would you describe his demeanor when he was talking about the bullet catch trick?
I never seen him so focused. I mean, he wasn't even drinking. Seemed to me he was taking this trick business very seriously.
Objection, Your Honor, under Rule 602 is speculation. Have you heard?
Yes, counsel.
Right now, this witness is speculating into Mr. Ashmore's mindset, saying that he was focused, saying that he was very intent on making sure this trick was safe.
Response, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. This falls under, well, in this case, the language that she uses is very specific. She said that he looked focused. She isn't speculating into his mindset at all. This falls under 701.
All overall reasonable grounds.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, let's now talk about what happened on July 14th of 2023. And how did that day start for you?
Well, I woke up a teensy bit hungover from the night before, which I fixed with an old family cure prayer. And then I went to the fairgrounds to start my act.
Now, were you able to watch Mr. Maximilian perform that trick?
No, I wasn't. I was stuck in my tent giving this man a palm reading, and you know, it was taking a long time because he had really big hands.
Did you ever find out what happened to Mr. Maximilian?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, I did.
How?
Well, I heard running, coming from outside my tent, so I went out to go check, and, that's when I saw it.
What did you see?
There were so many people. It's like a mob. They surrounded Max all on the ground. I couldn't even see him, but they were saying that he was dead.
Zach, did you ever speak to any investigators in this case?
Yes, sir, at the funeral.
Who was at that funeral?
A lot of people from LFC, and then there was a cop named Tab Thorne. It's a bit of a mouthful.
Did that investigator, Tab Thorne, say anything to you?
Yes, yes, she asked me if I knew anything that might explain Max's death, but, I did not know her well enough to gossip. So I told her I didn't know a thing, which is not a common thing for a psychic to say.
After you had told Detective Thorne that you didn't know anything, what was their response?
Well, she just glared at me and said, we know Legacy's responsible. We'll get the evidence with or without you.
Thank you so much. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel.
Cross-examination on?
I am so sorry. Plaintiff, proceed with your cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Knack, I want to talk more about your skill set as a mentalist, all right?
It's my favorite thing to talk about.
Well, if you'd say that you're one of the best mentalists around,
I don't like to brag. It's not very ladylike, but I would.
you'd say you're a great performer.
I like to think so.
And in your opinion, good performers like you make fantastic liars.
Well, it's all about acting. And that's why my marriage is going so strong.
So you'd say you make a fantastic liar, ma'am? Yes.
Well, it's more of a performance space, sort of an actor or actress, but I'm not going to call myself that.
Ma'am, is it a yes or no you think good performers make fantastic liars?
Yes, ma'am.
Because you need to be able to stretch the truth in order to sell an act.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
And then, as a mentalist, you even consider yourself a master of psychological manipulation.
Right. Well, sometimes I have to tell these poor girls that I see marriage in their future, like I did for myself, but I really don't.
So yes, you're a master of psychological manipulation.
Yes, I am.
You tell people like those girls exactly what they want to hear.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Doesn't matter if it's true or not.
Well, I try to tend towards the side of truthfulness unless I think it'll really crush their spirit.
So ma'am, you don't always tell the truth.
I know, ma'am.
All right, then I want to talk about if you have any reason to use that skill set today. Because ma'am, you do have a vested interest in the outcome of this case, don't you?
Sorry, how do you mean?
And then you work for Lambert Family Content.
Oh, correct, I do.
And you say you owe all of your success to Lambert Family Content.
Well, I was blessed with my gifts on my own, but yes, I've had a great job at LFC. I love it.
You say you owe all of your success to them.
Yes, I would.
And now that carnival's name is being dragged through the mud.
Yes, it is.
And it's not just that carnival's name that's being hurt, is it?
I mean, like other people.
And your own personal career has been affected, right?
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, I might not get to work there anymore for one thing. Was there something else?
For another thing, ma'am, your recent TV appearances, they've been canceled.
Not all of them, but there were these two sort of talk show podcasts I was doing that postponed on me. Said they didn't want problematic guests, which, doesn't seem usual for podcasts.
And they're not just postponed, you've had events canceled.
Oh, yes, one got canceled altogether.
And you'd say the entire trajectory of your career has been affected.
Yes, in some ways.
But you see a way to fix that, right?
Well, I think if I keep doing my work and performing, I'll get back there.
And then you think once it's clear that Lambert Family Carnival is responsible, you'll get back there, right?
Oh, I hope so.
So now you're here testifying voluntarily?
Yes, I felt it was the right thing to do.
Testifying voluntarily on behalf of Lambert Family Carnival.
Yes.
But I want to talk about something you just told us on direct examination, because you talked about a conversation with Angel Ashmore, right?
Yes, ma'am, on the 13th.
So that it happened on July 13th, the day before the trip.
Correct.
In that conversation, you say he looked focused, right?
Oh, seems to me.
But I want to be clear on how focused you were. Because like you said, you've been drinking.
I had, yes.
You were so drunk that you fell asleep face down on a poker table.
Oh, well, I wouldn't call myself drunk. You know, I can hold my alcohol. I grew up on community wine.
Man, you like you grew up on convenient wine, you woke up face down on a poker table, right?
Yes, that's where I fell asleep.
And while you were asleep, you don't know if Angel Ashmore started drinking that night.
While I was asleep,
That's right, man. You don't know if Angel Ashmore started drinking that night.
well, I can try to check. Yeah, I don't know.
Man, you don't know if Angel Ashmore pulled the guns out of a lockbox that night.
Oh, Lord. No, I didn't see any of that.
While you were sleeping, you don't know if Angel Ashmore fired that gun.
No, but I mean, I reckon it would have woken me up.
Thank you for your time, ma'am. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Defense, redirect.
No redirect, Your Honor. We're okay with Ms. Knapp taking a step down.
Thank you, Ms. Knapp, for your testimony. You are
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, counsel, we're gonna take a 10-minute recess. Counsel, everyone may be seated. Everybody ready on the plaintiff's side?
Plaintiff's ready, Your Honor.
Thank you, everybody ready for the defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Then plaintiff, you may call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. Before we do that, I know we entered the gun. Can we consider it constructively published?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. With that, the plaintiff calls investigator Tab Thorne.
Mrs. Thorne, please come to the witness stand and you are sworn in.
Thank you.
May I proceed? Good afternoon. Can you introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Good afternoon. My name is Tabby Thorne.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a financial investigator with the Toronto Bureau of Investigation.
How long have you been investigating?
It's about 8 years now. I'm actually coming up on my anniversary. It's my career, not my husband.
What got you into law enforcement?
I come from a military family. My father served and so did both my brothers. I can't do a pull-up, so I thought I might pull files instead.
Ms. Thorne, we've heard a lot about you today. I want to hear it from you. Are you a dirty cop?
No, sir, I'm not.
Do you know who Legacy Lambert is?
Yes, I know Lacey Lambert. Known her for several decades. She's the owner of the Lambert Family Carnival, and I know I'm under oath, so to be frank, I wish I didn't know.
What do you mean?
Well, I've been investigating Lambert Family Carnival for over a few years, a good chunk of my career, for possible financial crimes.
What kind of crimes?
Well, I was looking into the possibility that the Lambert Family Carnival was a front for money laundering for a trafficking ring.
Objection, Your Honor, on Rule 403, substantially more prejudicial than probative. And
Yes.
Your Honor, this witness didn't find any evidence of money laundering at all, but continued to investigate this witness. For this testimony to be elicited to show that there was some sort of scheme going on is substantially more prejudicial than it's probative.
Response?
Your Honor, we'll go into what this investigator found in their investigation. We believe they did find pieces of evidence that contributed towards their investigation.
Response to that, counsel.
Yes, Your Honor, if that's the case, we'll take it up on cross, but we believe this witness said under oath that they found nothing.
In that case, I'm gonna overrule the objection, Council can raise on this.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. When did you start investigating LFC?
I started my investigation in 2015. I looked into Lacey's personal finances as well as the finances of the carnival.
In that 2015 investigation, what did you find?
Nothing. Not a decimal out of place. It was almost too clean. I mean, sometimes you're looking at the books, you see a small accounting error here and there, but there was nothing like that here.
How did your investigation proceed?
It didn't. When I went to tell my bosses about my investigation as well as the possibilities that I was coming up with, they told me to drop it. I pushed back and I was fired. And the next week, Lacey Lampert and the Lampert Family Carnival were leaving Murata.
Were you able to continue investigating LFC?
I was. After I made the jump from state law enforcement to federal law enforcement, the FBI greenlit an undercover investigation into Lampert Family Carnival.
Were you involved?
I was. Given my personal history with Lacey, we thought it would be best that I go undercover at the carnival, and I work some of the carnival booths. Asked me about winning the big teddy bear after this.
And besides the big teddy bear, what did you find?
Suspicious exchanges of money, dwindling crowd sizes, rampant
Your Honor, under
disorganization.
Rule 403, maybe heard.
Yes, Council.
This case has nothing to do about suspicious exchanges of money. For opposing counsel to elicit this testimony when it doesn't pertain to the facts in this case is substantially more prejudicial than it is probative.
Response.
Yes, Your Honor, it's the defense's contention that this cop was investigating LFC for the wrong reasons. Their motivation behind their investigation and what they found is relevant, and the jury needs to hear it to fully consider their testimony.
Overrule based on this grounds.
Yes, Your Honor.
Were you able to finish, ma'am?
No. Like I said, I saw some specific exchanges of money. Crowds were dwindling, rampant disorganization throughout the carnival.
What do you mean by rampant disorganization?
Well, they kept all of their prizes and their props together in one tent. One time when I was working one of the booths, I went to go grab some more small teddy bears, saw a gun lying on the floor. And that's definitely not something you want to give a kid after the third time at the ring toss.
Ma'am, is this the gun you saw on the floor?
That's the one.
Objection, Your Honor, lack of foundation. Maybe heard.
Yes, Council.
We lack foundation for how this witness knows that the gun in the photo is the same gun she saw. There are no distinctive markings on the gun, and absent that foundation, that's a conclusion she can't make.
In the same objection, Council, please develop with further testimony.
Move to strike.
Granted.
Yes, Your Honor. Permission to approach the witness.
Yes, Council.
Why do you think that was the same gun?
It looks exactly like the one I saw in the prop tent. Same scratches and everything.
Is there anything else you see on the gun?
Just really scuffed up.
Thank you, ma'am. I can take that back. Ms. Thorne, I want to talk about the night of July 14th. Were you at Max's show?
I was, sir.
How did it begin?
It started off with Max doing a few small tricks, and then that led up to the big trick. His assistant was on the other side of the stage, pulled out a gun, and pulled the trigger.
What happened when she pulled the trigger?
Max collapsed. I mean, we were all in disbelief. You never think you're going to see something like that.
What did you do when Max collapsed?
I started to reinstall some order. I had to break cover just until local law enforcement could get there and start their investigation.
When the cops got there, did you talk to them?
Of course, and I told them everything that I was doing, why I was there, what I had seen, and I also sat in on some on-site interviews of witnesses.
Ms. Thorne, I want to talk a little more about that gun you saw. Can you hear from Mr. Udin's testimony?
I was, sir.
Did you hear him say that this gun was fired by the carnival's armorer the night before the trip?
I did hear that.
When you interviewed the armorer, did she tell you she was firing it?
No. She didn't offer up that information or anything.
Did you ask Lacey Lambert about this gun?
Yeah, one of the officers did.
What did she say?
She said, should have got someone to take care of that gun.
I'm going to hand you the gun one more time. Can you show it to the members of the jury? Does that gun look new to you?
No,
Objection, Your Honor, a proper opinion. Maybe
Yes, counsel.
for this witness to just opine whether or not the gun looks new without any foundation about how she knows the history of the gun, just based on the markings on it, that requires foundation that's not on the record.
Response?
Wait, not admissibility, Your Honor. She's an investigator. She works with the federal government. She has a gun. She can testify to what she sees on the gun.
Mrs. saying that, counsel will bring further foundation on why she believes it's, what she is portraying it to be.
Yes, Your Honor.
And I believe there was a brief answer, move to strike just that portion.
Correct.
Ma'am, have you used a gun before?
yes, I have my own.
Does this gun look like your gun?
No, my gun isn't nearly this messed up. I mean, it's got scuffs and scrapes all over it.
How long have you had your gun?
About 3 years.
Thank you, ma'am. Nothing further.
Counsel? Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor.
Would you like this?
That's okay. Never seen.
I hear it.
Ma'am, isn't it true you have a vendetta against Miss Lambert?
I wouldn't call it a vendetta.
Well, let's talk about what you would call it, because you met her in high school, right?
That's right. That's where I originally know Lacey from.
You didn't like her then, did you?
Not at the time. No,
Ma'am, you thought she got away with everything, correct?
I did back then, years ago.
Reported her for cheating because you thought she was, right?
Yeah, in high school I did.
Ma'am, she didn't get in trouble, did she?
No, sir, she didn't.
You did, right?
That's right.
You almost lost your scholarship, correct?
I did.
And you blame all of that on Miss Lambert, don't you?
I did back then, yeah.
Ma'am, on direct examination, you said you wish you had never met her. Did I hear that correctly?
That is correct.
And your grudge, ma'am, it didn't end in high school, did it?
Objection, Your Honor, just to counsel testifying.
It's a question, Ron.
Just specifically calling it a grudge.
This is cross-examination, I'm gonna allow it.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ma'am, you carried that grudge with you when you became a cop, true?
True, when I started investigating Lacey in the Lambert family carnival.
Ma'am, when you began investigating her, you didn't find anything, right?
No, exactly. It was too clean.
Yeah, that's right. She was following the law too well. Do I have that right?
Well, normally, sometimes in financial investigations, especially in places like carnivals that sometimes don't maintain the best accounting staff, you see some sort of small mistakes. Not anything against the law, but it was something I noticed here.
Ma'am, to be clear, you didn't find anything wrong with Miss Lambert's business. She was completely clean, correct?
That's right.
But you kept investigating, true?
Yes,
Your bosses ordered you stop, drop it. Is that right?
well, I went to them with my suspicions about the Lambert family carnival, and that's when they told me to drop the case.
So that's a yes, they ordered you to drop it.
They did, sir.
Ma'am, you ignored that order, didn't you?
I pushed back. I thought that something was going on with them.
When you say you pushed back, you ignored that order. Yes or no?
I did.
You kept investigating Miss Lambert, didn't you?
I sure did.
Let's talk about how that might be affecting your testimony today. Because after you were fired as a police officer, you became an investigator, correct?
I went to more high-profile crimes instead.
And in 2023, once again, you saw another opportunity to investigate Miss Lambert, right?
Well, the MBI actually greenlit an investigation into the Lampert family carnival.
But ma'am, at first, before that, you asked if you could, true?
That is correct.
And that time they denied your request, didn't they?
They did at the time.
But then an anonymous tip popped up, didn't it?
Yes, one did.
Ma'am, you can't tell us how you got that tip, can you?
No, I cannot, sir.
Can't tell us when you got that tip.
No, it was an anonymous tip.
Can't tell us the contents of that tip, right?
No, sir.
But mysteriously, this tip pops up that allows you to keep investigating her. Do I have that all right?
Well, yes, the anonymous tip came through, and then we were able to greenlight the investigation.
Well, let's talk about what you found in your investigation, because you were present during Miss Lampert's interview with law enforcement, true?
That is correct, sir.
And ma'am, you know law enforcement found no criminal wrongdoing, right?
That's right.
But ma'am, you weren't satisfied with that, were you?
Well, no, I wasn't. I have suspicion of more things going on.
So after that, you reached out to the public administrator, true?
I did.
You said, I volunteer to represent the plaintiff in a lawsuit, correct?
I did volunteer.
And now, ma'am, you're representing the estate of a carnival magician, is that right?
I am, sir.
I see you're wearing a police badge. You're not representing the state, are you?
No. I'm here because I was conducting the investigation of the Lampert family carnival. I was there the night that Max died, and I mean, I work at a desk. I haven't seen anything like that before. So I went to them. I offered my help.
Ma'am, that wasn't my question. You're not here representing the police department, are you?
No, I'm not.
You're here testifying against Miss Lambert, yes or no?
I am. That's my role today.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Redirect.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Thank you. Maybe this one's excused.
Yes.
Thank you for your testimony. You are excused.
Thank you, ma'am.
Defense, you may call your last witness.
Yes, Your Honor, we call Ms. Lambert to the stand.
Thank you, Ms. Lambert. Go ahead and take the stand. You are under oath.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Go ahead. Counsel.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please introduce yourself to the members of the jury.
Good afternoon. It's nice to get to talk to you. My name is Lacey Lambert.
What do you do for a living, ma'am?
Well, I am the CEO and managing owner of Lambert Family Carnival. It's been in my family since my great-great-grandparents. It's actually, fun fact, one of the oldest carnivals in the United States.
What kind of carnival is LFC?
Typically, it's a traveling carnival, although sometimes we do short residencies. If you imagine what a carnival is, lion tamers, magicians, rides, games. Lambert Family Carnival is all of that. I have spent the last decade of my life trying to make that vision a reality.
How exactly are you trying to make that vision a reality?
Well, as I mentioned, it's a historic carnival. So when I inherited it from my parents, there was a lot of improvements that needed to be made. And I spent a lot of my own time and money in doing that.
What sort of improvements do you try to make?
It's all the stuff that Miss Mackey talked about earlier. She knows something about having a vision. I go first usually about how I can find a husband. Improving tents, improving our crew. We built out a larger staff. Improving our rides. I mean, we tried to make it a whole new carnival when I took over in 2013.
Ma'am, if that's how you ran your carnival, I want to talk more specifically about this case. Did you know Max Maximilian?
I did. We contracted him for about a month, June to July in the summer of 2023.
And what kind of work did you contract?
To be our magician. He was our closing show for a night.
And what was it like working with Mr. Maximilian?
I thought it was great. I met him because I went to one of his performances. The best magician I've ever seen. I went right up, I shook his hand, I said, "Are you free to work on Saturday?" And he started right then. He was very professional, everything I could have asked for.
What kind of tricks would he do at your carnival?
All sorts of things. He had a very popular routine. He drew enormous crowds, including actually the owner of the fairground that we were renting out. One night, he approached me. He asked me to get Max to do a personal favorite trick of his. He'd seen Max perform before. Bullet catch. I passed along the request to Max.
How did asking Max about the bullet trick go?
Well, he agreed to do it. I pressed him into it pretty hard. I'll admit that. I told him we had final say. I regretted that. So a few days later, I took him out to coffee. I apologized. I told him if he didn't feel comfortable doing it, not to do it. He was the performer. He had the final say. I shouldn't have negotiated so.
How did Mr. Maximilian respond to that?
We took it very graciously. He said that it was all right. He was planning on doing it. He'd done it before. He just had a couple of requests. You know, he asked us to provide him with some props, and then he asked us to take a few precautions.
What sorts of precautions exactly?
Well, he wanted us to maintain the gun that he was using properly, and he wanted us to get some blank cartridges. And we did both of those things.
Okay, well, ma'am, if you were trying to keep your carnival clean, then I want to talk about cops with dirty. Do you know Officer Thorne?
I certainly do.
When did you meet her?
That nice. She moved to town in sophomore year. We never got along. No, high school. If there was a particular reason, we just didn't gel. But over the years, our relationship got worse and worse. And in our senior year, she told our principal I cheated on my final. I hadn't. I mean, it became a huge deal.
Did your relationship ever get any better?
No, you know, I had hoped that when we grew up, we could act like adults about the whole thing. But Tabby became a police officer, and for the last 10 years, she has been calling me up, saying I'm participating in progressively more and more elaborate financial. She said today that she thinks my carnival is a front for a trafficking ring. That is not true.
Ma'am, did any of these accusations lead to convictions?
No, not a one. I've complied with every investigation. I've provided all of my financials. But after 10 years, I'm getting tired of it. Tabby, if there's something I did, I'm sorry. But I don't deserve this. I don't know how to make it stop.
Did you ever try to report her for her conduct?
I did. After the first investigation, I went to the police department and she was fired.
Well then, ma'am, when did you find out she was on this case?
The night of the accident, one of my performers had just died, and I was sitting in my tent being interviewed by the police. She's sitting there in this interview. She doesn't say anything. I don't know why she's. They discuss. They come back in. They say, no, we're not pursuing anything. Nothing criminal. And I'm so relieved. And then the minute they walk out, she comes storming back in. She gets in my face. She says, I know it's your fault what happened to him.
Ma'am, is that true? Is it your fault what happened?
Of course, I don't think that. Why would I do something to risk the lives of one of my performers, any of my performers, let alone my best performer whose show I needed to go? I have been ruined by this, not just financially, emotionally. That was the worst night of my life. What do I have to do?
Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you, counsel. Cross-examination.
Indeed. May I proceed?
Please, counsel.
Good afternoon, Ms. Lambert.
Good afternoon.
I want to talk about what's on the line for you today. Your carnival's on trial.
We're being sued.
The carnival your great-great-great-grandma started is in trouble.
It's been in trouble for a little while now. but we are in a lawsuit, yes.
Cops shut you down.
On that night, yes, there was a whole investigation. Obviously, they had to check the whole scene.
The fairground kicked you out.
Yes, they did.
I want to talk about why. Because you were here for opening statements, right?
Yes, I was.
You know that this trial is about why your carnival's trick wasn't safe.
It's about why Max died. Yes.
Are you telling the members of this jury you did everything you could to make sure that trick was safe?
I believe we took all the precautions Max asked us to take.
Ma'am, everything you could to make sure it was safe. I want to get those words right. Is that what you're saying?
I believe that we balanced safety as best we could. We followed his precautions.
Ma'am, everything you could.
We followed those precautions.
Let's talk about whether or not that was true. Because, ma'am, you know about the trick Max was doing that night, right?
Right, the bullet catch. I understand that he'd done it a couple of times before. When he came to me, listed out a repertoire of all the tricks he could do. He mentioned that one.
You know how that trick works.
Yes, the magician's assistant pretends to fire a gun at the performer. They're supposed to catch the bullet in the mouth.
Ma'am, a loaded gun is fired at the magician's face.
It's not loaded. There's only blanks in there.
Ma'am, loaded with blanks, fired at his face.
It's fired in his direction. That's right.
Supposed to catch it in his mouth.
Well, sure, that's what the magic is, that he catches the bullet in his mouth.
You know, that's a dangerous trick.
It certainly sounds that way, but again, if you're loading the gun with blanks and taking care of it properly, Max assured me it was something he was comfortable doing.
Max said he was comfortable, but with a new gun.
He asked for a new gun. That's true. We provided him with a gun.
Hold on, ma'am. You provided him with a gun. You didn't say, we can't afford a new gun. Don't do the trick.
No, he just asked us to procure a gun. He asked for one that was brand new. He told us that was his preference. Unfortunately, we couldn't make that work with the budget, but we found one that was safe. Our armorer checked it himself.
You just told me a lot. I want to go through what you said.
Sure.
He said if he didn't get the right gun, things could go wrong.
He said that he needed a gun for the trick. He said that he preferred one that was new.
And he said if he didn't, things could go wrong.
If we didn't take precautions, sure.
You promised Max new props.
Promise is a strong word. I said, we'll get you new props for you.
That was never going to happen.
Well, we did replace all of his props he asked us to replace. We procured Max a lot of props during that month, but not all of them were brand new. No.
Ms. Lambert, you bought Max the cheapest equipment you could find.
I wouldn't say that.
Every time you needed a prop, you got the cheapest one you had.
That's not really how it works. We do expense requests at a high, medium, and low range. Of course, the low range isn't the cheapest thing on the market. It's the cheapest thing that's still safe.
Ma'am, you're not doing the expense requests, right?
No, our licensed armorer is. He knows everything about firearms in terms of their safety. He took a training course.
So when your armorer gave you the options, you picked the cheapest option you had.
Of course, we had to. I mean, a traveling carnival, we're not exactly swimming in money.
You mentioned the armorer. You didn't have a team of professionals checking that gun.
No. Unfortunately, that summer we were on a downswing. We just had the one.
You told us on direct you built out a larger staff at LFC. You had one person checking the gun.
At that time, that's true. Our staff kind of fluctuates with the season depending on how well we're doing. At that time, we had one armorer on staff.
That one armorer. You know, they weren't the best at their job.
Best in business? No. But he was very competent. And honestly, in a few years, I think he could be the best.
Not the best.
The very best there is? No, but I think he's very good.
When Max took that stage, you didn't tell him he was staring down ammunition you bought the day before.
I don't know what the armorer told him. I understand that the blanks came in the day before the trial.
You didn't tell him that gun had been loaded with live ammunition the day before.
That cannot.
Then you told us a lot about Tabby Thorne. She didn't come here and testify that gun was loaded with live ammunition.
No, I heard that from Mr. Udine. I want to be clear. That is completely completely antithetical to the Angel I know. He would have never played around with a gun like that.
Ma'am, he was never told that gun had been loaded with live bullets.
He certainly wouldn't have been told that. I don't think that's true.
He was never told those bullets and blanks, they'd been mixed together.
No, I don't understand what you're.
Ma'am, when those blanks were bought, the ammunition for that gun, they'd been mixed in with bullets.
Some of them, they were bought from the same gun club. They were purchased at the same time. That's why our armor went through the armor.
Ma'am, he was never told those blanks and bullets were bought together.
I don't know what Angel.
What you told him,
Personally, no.
nothing further.
Thank you, counsel. Any redirect by the defense?
No, Your Honor, we just asked the Ms. Langford to be allowed to step down.
Thank you, Ms. Langford. Ms. Nelson, anything further from either side of this time?
Plaintiff has nothing, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor, you're asking.
Thank you. We are going to adjourn and the judge will.